I'd like to call the board meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated for a moment of silence. Roll call and quorum check, please, Mr. Zepp.
I'll be the acting district clerk. Mrs. Miano is excused today. President, Mrs. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Nazareth, absent, excused. Mrs. Douglas.
Present.
Mrs. Dubard.
Present.
Mrs. Kirapolski.
Here.
Mr. Schaefer.
Here.
Mr. Warburton, absent, excused. Also in attendance is our student ex officio member, Nadira Robinson.
Good evening, everybody. Could I have an approval, or I'm sorry, there's an introduction of guests. I do have to say that with us present is Ms. Saigonovich, and of course our technological master here, Mr. Ron Levere. I need an approval of the board meeting minutes from the regular meeting of 11/9/2021, please.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. I have a motion by Ms. Karapolsky, a second by Mrs. Dubard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Board trustee reports. I'd like to start over in the left, my left here, with Nadira Robinson. Do you have anything you'd like to report for us, Nadira?
Yes. So I did a club survey for the students in school, and it's just about like involvement in clubs and activities. My main goal was to see how many students were involved, and overall I got the highest 30% for 11th grade. And then I got for the highest percentage for like gender, it was male, not female. And basically I just wanted to see how many kids were involved in each club or activity and see like why they weren't involved as well. I got 40% for none of the above for clubs. So my next Google form will be asking why they aren't involved, or like input for how we can get more student involvement.
I'm curious, how many responses?
I got 97.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
I think that's a great idea.
I do too.
Thank
I
you.
like that idea.
Love to see them get involved.
Is that it, Nadira?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mrs. Douglas, can you give us any report you have, please?
I had the opportunity to attend the BOCES, at BOCES rather, the speedboarding event, which was very informative. There were 3 presenters, shared a wealth of information, and it was wonderful to even see on our agenda for this evening talking about policies and updates, because that was one thing that they did emphasize. So I appreciated that. Had the opportunity to support the middle school music department, their concert, which was very nice, and the kids were excited to have their first in-person concert again. And I also supported the middle school musical, the Friday night opening show. Of course, there were jitters, but the kids did a phenomenal job, and it was wonderful to see them do that. And lastly, I had an opportunity to go down to Houghton College for our first indoor track meet, and our kids did extremely well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schaefer.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm part of the Legislative Committee, so I just want to extend thank you to both Heather and Carol for going to the legislative breakfast. I couldn't be there, so I'm thankful for their attendance. On the 18th, we had a Zoom meeting for the legislative. It was a 2-part presentation, if you will. The first part, they want to do what they call a Bill Track 50. We have opportunities to look at bills that are brought to the floor, see if they pass, see if they're just dismissed. The attention is focused on the education. It could be local or statewide. It could even branch out to a nationwide tracking system. So it's new. We had, for the first hour, it was just an in-service, how to do this. So I'm pretty, find some things and, just check it out, see what things are going on at that legislative level. And then we had our Zoom meeting that took place after that. At the end of the month of November, I was, among my other colleagues, I attended the joint school board over at Cleveland Hill High School cafeteria. There was some discussions. One thing we talk about, a shout out for our school. Mr. Wright talked about our unified basketball team, and just looking at the other districts, Maryvale, Cleveland Hill, and Cheektowaga Sloan, it seemed like they had some type of attention. They were listening. Maybe it was drawing some interest, maybe it was just getting their wheels going. So it was good to see that we can branch off or share ideas. That's what we do at Joint Committee, just to share ideas throughout. On the 8th, I took a walkthrough of the middle school. I met with the principal, Pat Cullinan. We spent some time together, showed me around, we had some discussion. Have an opportunity to interact with some teachers in some classes. So, I thank them very much for giving me the time to, and his time to do that. That night, during our discussion, he was talking about, there was the 7th and 8th grade holiday concert. So I told him I'd come in attendance. I went there, and like Mrs. Douglas said, it was the first time in 2 years. I think shout out to the music staff and to the students for a great holiday concert. And I want to say that is it for today.
Thank you very much. Ms. Karpolsky.
Yes, I was also at the joint board meeting. I'd covered a lot of what we discussed. We did have a large discussion about the masks as well, and working to see what the 4 districts would like to do, what we can do, all the discussions that are going on with the local governments and towns. So it was a great evening to hear how everybody felt and, where this is all going, what we can do to advocate for our kids and to ensure their safety as well as not just their health, but their emotional well-being. So it was a good discussion. I enjoyed it. I was also at the legislative breakfast and had the pleasure of sitting at a table with Monica Wallace. So of course, every time you get somebody that close to you, you want to, advocate as much as you can for your district. And it was a great opportunity. She did say that anybody that wants to, she emphasized it's the right thing to do, be the advocate for the kids in the district. And she said she has an email. She's welcome to hearing from us, phone calls. So if there's something that arises that we want to touch base with, we have any questions, concerns, or just want to get her on board with something that's going on in our district, to please let her know. And there were many other legislators there, so it was nice to be able to get their ears for a little bit and at least feel like they were open to hearing from us. It seems like the majority of them are. So I would encourage all of you to use that avenue. When we're looking at policies, procedures, things that are coming up that we want to really push, get the emails out there, let them know, be heard, make sure that they know this is important to us. I also was able to make a varsity basketball game last week, and it was fun to be back in the stands. I missed it, so it was really nice to be there and to see the excitement of the kids, the parents being able to watch their kids. We kind of lost that, and so now you really appreciate having the ability to do that and to observe. And then the only other thing I wanted to do was to give a congratulations to Coach Haverhill on his 250th win. You know, that caught my eye especially because my boys wrestled. So it's a great accomplishment. Very proud of him, and congratulations to Coach Haverhill.
Mrs. Dubard, thank you. Mrs. Kowalski.
So I also attended the legislative breakfast with legislators and senators. There were 3 presenters from different school districts, and they had gone over several topics, but they like picked major ones that they kind of talked most about. They were the test to stay. Obviously, that's a big, huge thing. The big conversation was you can be pro-vaccines but anti-mandates. And they said that if we want to advocate, when we reach out to our legislators and senators in our emails, phone calls or whatever, we need to be very specific on what we need from them. Not just, hey, I really don't want to wear masks anymore. No, like what is specific about it so that they can do their research. And there's a lot of bills that are in motion that have been backed and things that a lot of districts don't know about, that we can reach out and find out, you know, what bills are on the table to get passed or to be voted on. So that's very important for us. Another thing that they spoke about was the foundation aid formula and how it's broken, and how the Lakeshore District has a lottery winner and how that just totally messes up their entire foundation aid. And they said that, yeah, it's affecting our small district now, but it can affect anyone's district because of the way that it's built. So that was touched on, not a lot, but it was mentioned and discussed. And then another big topic was about digital access, and not about so much about the laptops and the Chromebooks, but about the actual technology and getting it to the rural areas. How do you get FiOS or, you know, the internet out to those areas without costing a huge portion of taxes and things like that? So they have some hoops to figure out and stuff, because not everyone has that kind of access, which you don't even think about. You just think like, oh, you can just run a line, but it's not that easy in a lot of areas that we take for granted. So that is another thing that they're trying to push and figure out with legislators, how to get everyone access to digital, which I think is also very important for all of our kids nowadays, especially since COVID. So that's all that I have to report.
Thank you very much. This board's been busy. I appreciate it. And I also attended the speed boarding for ECASB. As Mrs. Douglas said, we had 3 presenters that were really informative. I like the nights that end with a legal team, Tracy Lepardi, and her partner from Harris Beach did a wonderful presentation on board meetings and open meeting laws, and we talked about different changes, different laws that have changed and come up the pike. So I do have some information on those presenters and what they offer to us if anybody wants to see it and go over it. I did have a delegate assembly meeting which I attended at ECASB. I'm on that committee, just like Ed is on legislative. And once again, it's huge for us to reach out to our elected officials, try to touch base with them or even leave a message at their office about our needs and our wants. And like Heather said, their desire is for us to be very specific. Years back when our financial situations changed with all these districts, we did a huge push at all of our events and as a unit, signed petitions, wrote letters, and I think that we're in a time where there's so much going on with our schools and our kids, and we want to be proactive for our students. We want to keep them safe and protected. We also need to remember that we need to have our voices heard as a board and where we stand on certain issues. So the best way to do that is to reach out to those people and get their attention. So I've been doing the same thing, writing letters and calling and leaving messages. I haven't gotten any phone calls back yet, but they're also busy too. So usually an aide will call back if they can't return their calls to us. I also want to say congratulations to Mr. Haverhill as well for his 250th they call it on the mat win. We appreciate that, and he's been a huge, I guess, the wrestling guru here for us, for Cheektowaga, for coaching. Ms. Karopolsky's boys were wrestlers. Russell was a wrestler, but only for a short period of time. But we appreciate him and his commitment to that sport. So moving along, we will have our consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone would like to remove?
Is it
Nothing?
possible to have questions?
Yes.
Regarding item J, the in-person ASAP program?
Item J. Okay.
I can go ahead.
Mhm.
So,
Do you want to remove that from
Do
the
you-
consent agenda?
Yeah, well, to talk about it, we need to remove it.
we're
So
going to make a
we'll-
motion to move.
We'll remove it from the consent agenda, then we can vote on all the other things.
Together.
Then come right back to J.
Okay.
So we're going to remove letter J, Mr. Zip, from the consent agenda,
Okay,
please. Okay, I need a motion for the rest of the consent agenda, please.
I'll make the motion.
In a second.
Second?
I have a motion by Mrs. Jabar, a second by Mrs. Douglas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Mr. Wright, Superintendent's report.
Do you want to go to item J, the in-person? on the
Yeah, we
consent
can.
agenda? And
Yeah,
that way we won't lose it?
okay. So, Mrs. Douglas, you want to state what your questions are?
Just one, well, maybe two questions, but when reading the attachment on the agenda, I'm just curious if you can just address kind of broadly what you mean by challenges that you may face.
So the students, when they're out of school suspension, currently, they log in during the day and we have teachers who remotely go on and help them. Remote is a challenge. The students aren't necessarily coming onto it remotely. The teachers are sitting there. The other challenge is, besides it remote being difficult, is that students who have issues being in school are not really learning from those issues by just coming on remotely. Like if we were to be with them in person, we can work with them more than remote.
If they were present in the building.
Correct.
So just another question, long-term versus how frequent the program, clearly you can't address what may happen in the future,
Correct.
but in the past, do you have like a rough estimate
So
of
currently,
long-term suspensions?
We have 4 students that could use this in-person long-term suspension.
Okay.
We have one student who was returning in January who was on it. We had another student who was out all of the first marking period who could have benefited from it.
Okay.
And we've actually sent 2 students out of our district, which we could have saved that substantial cost had we had our own placement here.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So, will this be a room, a section of a wing,
So it'll be a classroom after school hours.
Okay. Okay.
So that's why there's busing costs, because it's after school? Correct. So they would be using the buses that are coming to pick up our students to bring them in. The
Mhm.
cost would be the bus that would be taking them home after the program.
Is there, because I'm assuming the number of students is not really high, is there the possibility of using the school van to transport home? To save money, or is that not an
So
option?
there'd be the possibility, the question would be who'd be driving.
Yes.
Okay.
Not that anything isn't
Okay.
ability to overcome, but I think that would be a challenge, especially, is it 5:30?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And the same person will be with those, it will be the same person overseeing them, supervising that all the time?
Yes.
Okay.
One lead teacher.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I need a motion for that, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass or adopt the proposal from our high school
Thank you.
superintendent, or principal.
Thank you. And I'll second that. So I have a motion from Mrs. Douglas, a second by Mrs. Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Yes. So, on to the superintendent's report, and first of all, I just want to say, I appreciate your working with me as we try to adjust the agenda to meet the needs of the Board of Education. And the other piece I just want to add lib to, just for a moment, building off of Mrs. Kropalski's comments. I think we're very fortunate at Cheektowaga Central. We have an excellent relationship with Tim Kennedy and with Monica Wallace. They have done a fantastic job in meeting with us and trying to meet our needs, which you guys have already addressed. But I also just want to be able to thank Monica Wallace as she assisted us in receiving a $75,000 bullet aid grant for us. And so I know she was working with Mr. Zip for that, and it really, we're putting the pieces together to really make that advantageous for all of our kids, but I certainly just want to acknowledge the work that she's done, what Mr. Zip has done, and what the high school will be doing in the future.
Thank you.
So on to the item A of the superintendent's report. It's regarding the superintendent's evaluation process. And honestly, my evaluation isn't until the end of the year. But as who I am, I would like to suggest that we do a mid-year informal evaluation prior to the next board meeting. And to assist in that, I've given you 2 handouts. And one handout is the council's superintendent model evaluation. And one is the thoughtful classroom. It's really the principal's evaluation model that we use at Cheektowaga Central. And what I thought is it would give you an opportunity to review some of the items that we look at for administrators, and you can provide feedback for me and certainly missed opportunities. I personally have used the council superintendent model evaluation for my own reflection. I have gone through that, and I am hoping that we can practice in January, so when it comes closer to the end of the school year, we'll be able to do my evaluation, and we'll be sure that we're meeting everyone's needs through that. So it really is informational. I'm willing to answer any questions, and if we're okay with that, then I would think we would create an executive session prior to the next meeting, before it, maybe at 6:30, to be able to walk our way through that. Any questions or comments that I can answer for anyone?
I like this model, this evaluation model, because it is similar.
Isn't it, I was gonna say, is this like the
It's
super
similar to
email?
what we've
Yeah.
used in the past, where we can then all fill it out and give a rating and then pull it together and then give an average. Is that the same kind of thing that
I'm
you would be
open to
okay
that.
with? Okay.
I'm also open to the fact, and I think this is where we need to have that conversation. If you need time to have that conversation without me in the meeting before we practice it, that's fine too. And then when we come back, we can talk about the things that are going in the right direction, perhaps some missed opportunities, or things we'd like to do better.
I think that's a great idea. I personally, myself, would like to be able to have some time with the board members to go over this, so we can discuss our opinions, and maybe some things, somebody wants to talk about, we can talk about privately, if that's all right with you.
That's fine.
And then we can come together after that. So if you all look at this, is this something that you would be willing to adopt for us to evaluate Mr. Wright?
Sure.
Yes. This looks very similar to what we used in
Yes,
the
it's
past, and I
pretty,
liked the
pretty
tool we
close
were
to what we
using,
always
so,
used to
It was
use.
just a lot of,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Anyone have any questions?
Your rating scales 1 to 5 or 1 to 3?
I'm sorry?
Your rating scales 1 to 5 or 1 to 3?
1 to 4.
1 to 4,
Okay.
yeah.
And to be honest with you, that just about every evaluation process now is geared towards the same as the teachers. So as much as we say 1 to 4, ineffective is 1, highly effective is 4. And I guess ultimately, I provided both because it's nice to just be able to compare, although you're gonna see there are many similarities within all of them, although the principals one is a little bit difficult because the principal and the superintendent are not exactly identical. So,
So my suggestion would be if we could take these home, go through that questions, go through everything, maybe put some notes down that you have, and then give your rating so that when we come back to the table to meet, we'll be that far ahead and then we can go everything together, if that's okay. So would we want to, is it easier for you all to meet earlier? Like,
Prior to the meeting?
because of your work schedules, everybody is, you know, 5-ish, 5:15. Will that work?
That would work.
So we can set it and be ready for it? Yes? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
awesome. Our next item, it's a resolution to authorize the superintendent to provisionally appoint. I'll start from the beginning. Resolution to authorize the superintendent to provisionally appoint well-qualified teachers, administrators, and staff until the board has the opportunity to meet and make a decision on the proposed employee, provided the board makes a final decision on the provisional appointment within 30 days. The board's failure to act within 30 days will make the provisional appointment null and void. To give you a little background, Mrs. Widman, actually, who was a district clerk in her other district and other experiences, brought this suggestion to us because at our staffing meeting on November 10th, I believe it was, which was the day after a board meeting, we were looking to move forward with hiring somebody, but they would have had to, well, they did have to wait until tonight's board meeting to be hired. And so we kind of get caught in those pieces. So if you approve this, then we would be able to, I would be able to provisionally appoint somebody, but it would not be permanent until you acted on it at the next board meeting. And ultimately, if the board doesn't act on it, or we don't have a meeting or a quorum or wherever that, again, that appointment is null and void. So you would ultimately have the final say in hiring.
How does everybody feel about that, okay? Any questions? No?
Well, this is a good idea.
Good idea. Okay, can I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. DeBarge, a second by Mr. Schaefer. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried.
The next item, be resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves to offer high school students the opportunity to earn 2 New York State approved diploma seals, the Biliteracy Seal and the Civic Seal of Readiness. And a little background to that, the seal's purpose is to be able to distinguish our students because of the course of study that they've taken and the significant of work they've put into that. I'm more familiar with the Civic Seal of Readiness as we are, I'm going to say, a pilot program for New York State. There's a handful of them. Cheektowaga Central has taken that task on, and our social studies department is really working hard to create a civics program. There is a new civics elective that our students are doing, and if you, I've been emailed, I don't know, probably 9 times to complete a survey on the First Amendment and what it means and how does it work to, and the conversations are incredible. But what we are seeing is we're going to be able to advertise our students to show that between the Biliteracy Seal and the Civic Seal that our students are achieving at a high rate. And Mrs. Saganovich, is there anything you'd like to add to that to do a better job than myself?
No, you did very well. Sign language seal has been around for a while. The civic seal is new, but we have students qualifying for both this year if you are to accept them.
Okay, so we need, anybody have any questions? We need a motion I guess, get new seals.
So it's to approve the
Use
availability of the
of,
seals.
okay,
Mhm.
the use of it, okay. Biliteracy seal and the civic seal of readiness. Can I have a motion for those, please?
I'll make a motion.
And second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Karpowski, a second by Ms. Dubard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
And I have to apologize, because it just dawned on me on the next topic. New policy 3430, which I actually thought was attached to the agenda, but I don't believe it is. Oh, no, it
It's
is.
attached.
It's
Oh,
there.
thankfully.
Yeah.
I asked that this not be put in the consent agenda for the first read. And I'll be clear why I did. A, I believe that this is significant enough that we should have conversation about it. It's something that I believe Cheektowaga has prided itself on the work we can do, but we've recognized that we can do better. And I think this policy is our opportunity to move in that direction. The New York State Board of Regents has encouraged school districts to adopt a policy, but it is not required. I wanted to just take a moment to kind of be specific of some of the things that are recommended through this policy. And so first and foremost, after it gets through definitions, it talks about the creation of a DEI committee, specifically a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that involves students, parents, people in parental relation, district and building administrators, teachers, including at least one a special education teacher, guidance staff, including at least one school psychologist, social worker, or counselor, any other district staff, the board, and community members. So again, as a school community, it is our hope that we would be able to come together as a committee to set the path for our district. And it being a policy puts some teeth to it. So I think that's important, and you'll see that the next piece that is suggested is a DEI coordinator. And this is a person that's going to see the policy through and will chair the committee, the DEI committee, to, again, make sure that we're meeting on a regular basis and having those discussions. So once that is in place and we can have discussion, I just want to acknowledge that our policy will or should or can, depending on the board's wishes, address teaching and learning, family and community engagement, workforce diversity, diverse schools and learning opportunities, student supports, discipline and wellness, training, and how we even notify our district that this is a practice that we have. And so what I think is significant about this, and again, I've said this, I've been a member of Cheektowaga Central Community since 1991. When Dr. Lewis was superintendent, we worked on diversity training, awareness, staff, students. We often talked about equity, and as even mentioned earlier, our idea of inclusion when it comes to even special education students and what do we do. There's been pieces of what we're looking for that we can be proud of, but ultimately, can we do it better? And I guess that's the piece to it. I guess I would open the floor to conversation because there is no action today on the policy itself, but if there's things that jump out at you.
So I would like to just ask a question. So if we have this creation of this, we would form a committee, and then the committee, do we basically write the policy on it, or is there, do you know what I mean? Like, we do our policy review so are we starting from scratch with this?
So we can adopt this policy as a whole. We can make changes to it. We can discuss the concept of it. Today, my piece was to be able to put it out there that it's a topic of conversation. I would like to bring at the January meeting the policy for first read,
Okay.
and then we could move to second read. But I thought it was worthwhile to have a conversation first before we actually bring the policy for first reading. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. And the DEI coordinator would be?
So we have options. Because they're so heavily in learning, and it's so heavily within special education, and certainly how we've been identified, you can make the argument that there could be co-coordinators, DEI coordinators, using our internal staff. You might ask the question, is that the most efficient? Is it the most effective? I'll say this, we have a tendency to layer on to people, so they only get so much done, right? We keep putting that. I don't know what the right answer is. You always have the option of another administrator, a different role into that. But it's worthy of a conversation.
But this is for the district as a whole?
This is, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else have any other questions?
A comment. Well, like you said, while DEI is not a required policy, I appreciate you bringing it to the table for our district. I think it's very important. And just like in the state conference, it was very clear that taking this on is very important. And I just want to say I appreciate this being brought to the table.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, I feel it's a great asset. I mean, in the workforces now, as employees, you have much of this training. I just had to go through pretty much the same thing. So in reality, it's preparing them for life, this is part of, and it gives them an outlet to voice, and I think it's a great opportunity, so.
Thank you.
All right, so I will work on that, and we'll bring it back to January for the first read.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Our next item, our Pine Hill Education Center lease amendment, and again, this was in terms it was in need because of the construction project that we were doing at Pine Hill, and ultimately resolved that the Board of Education of the Cheektowaga Central School District hereby approves as presented the lease amendment agreement between Cheektowaga Central School District and the Board of Cooperative Educational Services for the first supervisory district, Erie County, dated December 8th, 2021, and ending on June 30th, 2027, and authorizes the board president to execute the same. Besides the fact that there is additional funding to cover our construction, you'll notice that it also extends the lease. I will argue that that is in the best interest of Cheektowaga Central.
Absolutely.
It's a continued revenue source, as well as it protects our community to be sure that we have a great tenant that is meeting the needs of our neighborhood.
Absolutely. I would like a motion for the Pine Hill Education Center lease amendment agreement.
I'll make the motion.
In a second?
Second.
Anybody have any questions on this? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
The next item, the middle school 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. I asked that not be on consent agenda because it could be questionable, and I wanted to be able to answer any questions that you have. but be it resolved that based on my recommendation, the Board of Education approves the Washington DC trip for eligible 8th grade students on April 5th through April 7th, 2022, as presented, pending all student field trip regulations and procedures being implemented.
Okay, so my first question is, if typically with the Washington trip, kids have a place where they've raised money or some money goes towards it, or you give a deposit, whatever. My question is say money is raised, a deposit is made, COVID changes the plan, then do the kids get their money back? What happens as far as that goes?
I believe there is insurance in place for the refunding of.
Okay, and how about following those COVID guidelines when kids are staying in hotel rooms? Because typically it was back in the day when my kids were in there, it was 4
It says
students to 1 room.
Yeah, it says right here with students.
So how does this work?
So I do not have that answer.
Okay.
And I will tell you my personal view on this. I was reluctant to bring this to the group. However, I also have to recognize that I brought together our special education team, our unified team going to Florida, and I was not being equal. So I relented in my being stubborn and said, I have to be fair. And although I don't have the answer to it, and that may be something that we need to be able to find an answer for, I think we have to be COVID aware as we move forward with this trip, as well as, quite frankly, the Florida trip as well.
Okay.
It is a concern.
And we will have the right amount of chaperones,
Yes.
okay? Yes, and I think that's it for my questions.
I'm sorry.
Anybody else have any questions?
Renee, to your comment, sorry, Yvonne. According to the travel itinerary, it says that families can purchase travel insurance if they choose. However, if the whole entire school requests cancellation, they have to do it within 4 weeks of cancellation and payment will be reissued. If it's less than that, then they get less money, regardless of the reason for cancellation, it says. So, but it
Thank
is,
you.
but it is.
During the year that COVID hit was the year my son was an 8th grader, and we did receive our full refund.
Yes, we did, because that's when COVID was brand new.
Okay, good to know, thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Okay, can I have a motion to move the middle school student trip to take place?
I'll make the motion.
In a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. DeBarda, a second by Ms. Karpolsky. All in favor?
Just
Aye.
on readiness. So are you saying move forward, but you're gonna get the answers to the, how many students in the room,
No, we're gonna
regardless?
accept the trip and then we'll
You're
have
gonna
the
trust
answers
us.
when
Okay.
we can get them.
Okay.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
So the next item is our Board of Education goals. And if you remember correctly, we were brainstorming ideas and I tried to group those together and I created categories.
Can you pass the
Oh,
turn?
here, there's extras.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to have.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And with this, believe me, you're not going to hurt my feelings by changing a single word or every word onto here, but to understand what we've done is the solid bullets are the words that I came up with, and the open circles or open dots are the sticky notes that we had, just so you know what the comments were. So the 5 goals that I came up with was foster a safe and secure environment for all students, maximize Board of Education involvement at the district, county, state, and national levels to improve public education, present a budget to our community that supports a high-quality education for all, maintains district facilities, and long-term fiscal stability. Promote an environment that demands rigor for all students and staff that results in improved student achievement, attendance, and graduation rates. And promote a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment that welcomes and encourages participation of students, parents, and staff in the school community. Let me acknowledge that there is not necessarily anything measurable. We may want to keep it broad and a 10,000. I just wanted to be able to put some categories there for you and at least get it started. But we're open to wordsmith in any way.
I have to say that I do think that under bullet point number 2, we have already, I can tell you that if I look at that, I think that I can already measure that from last year to this year. So that is something that's measurable for sure. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody's input in. Mr. Wright, I want to say thank you to you for giving us guidance on the way we came about this and how, I would like to say fun and encouraging it was, if I can use those words together, right? Fun, encouraging, and how we were all able to participate in a way that allows us all to have a voice. So I thank you for that. I actually really like this. Is there anybody that doesn't or has a question or wants to change something?
No, I appreciate it, because I was wondering what happened to the email. You said you were gonna send it out.
I know.
So I appreciate it.
So what I would like to be able to do is then formalize this into something that we can attach to the agenda.
Yes, please.
And then you could vote and approve that at the January meeting.
Yes, please. Does anybody over on this side have any questions? No? I think that's a great idea. I think we should do that.
Excellent. So then the last item that I have that I am really springing on you because it is not on the agenda, but it is something that we discussed.
Do I need to make a move for
Yes.
that?
Oh,
Yes,
no.
Yes, I do.
for the board goals.
We're going to make a move for the board goals, but you don't need to,
Oh,
in order to put it into the form we want, we don't need to hold on that. Do you know what I'm saying?
okay.
So these, because we like this will be our board goals. These will be, we will adopt these as our board goals for tonight, and then that format can come
I'll
through.
make it a nice.
Is that okay? All right, can I have a motion, please, to adopt the Board of Ed goals?
They can make a motion.
In a second.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Douglas, a second by Mrs. DeBarge. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Okay. So what came out of our joint school board meeting with the Cheektowaga schools, we did talk about creating a resolution by the Board of Education in regards to test to stay policies. And so I've placed it in front of you, but I'd like to read it out for our community. The Cheektowaga Central School District Board of Education, whereas the future well-being of our community relies on providing all students access to high-quality education, and whereas the district continues to closely monitor the spread of COVID-19 in our area with updates from governmental and public health agencies, whereas the district recognizes that many healthy, unvaccinated students that are close contacts of an individual who tests positive for COVID-19 are required to quarantine under the New York State Department of Health regulations and/or guidance. And now therefore be it resolved, effective December 14th, 2021, the Cheektowaga Central Board of Education supports and encourages the Erie County Department of Health to permit our district to implement a test-to-stay mitigation strategy that allows unvaccinated students who are close contacts to avoid school exclusion by testing negative with a daily rapid NAT test or antigen test for 7 days after exposure to stay in school to stay in school instruction if a parent consents to this option to avoid school exclusion. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be transmitted to our local boards of education throughout the Erie and Niagara region, the Erie County Department of Health, our state governor, our New York State Department of Health, the New York State Department of Education, and to all members of the United States House of Representatives and Senate representing the families in our Cheektowaga Central School District, adopted by the Board of Education in Erie County at the regular open public meeting therefore held the 14th day of December.
Thank you. I would like to say that I appreciate all the hard work and all the dedication to our students and our children and our families through this entire COVID-19 situation. Over the past 19 months, we can say now, it has been a roller coaster ride, to say the least. When we got together with the joint boards of Cheektowaga, Maryville, Cleve Hill, JFK, Cheektowaga Sloan, and Cheektowaga Central, we discussed how important our children are to our buildings, our staff, our communities, to this board, everybody that works in here, and to our community. Our children's health and safety is #1 priority for us. This drafting and adoption of this resolution, moving forward, a lot went into the thought process of this. And it's important for people to understand that we take our children's safety and health at the top #1 priority of this situation. There is no other factor that's more important to them. Their education is important, but we are due diligent here in keeping them safe. So we want their safety to reflect more than just coming into the building and having an education and having a negative test is huge. But you have to remember that the kids of our community are important. They're important to their families, they're important to us, and their mental health and well-being and their security, and to know that the district is behind them and there are people here that truly care about them and their families is #1 to us. So for me, this adoption is huge. And I thank everybody that put time and effort into this. And I will always say that I respect whatever anybody's decision is as far as what they want to do for the safety of their child. Does anyone on the board have any questions or concerns about this resolution?
No.
No? No. Okay, I would like a motion to adopt this resolution.
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. DeBard, a second by Ms. Karpolsky. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
The only thing that I would ask is that our acting district clerk collect signatures so we can then send this out with an official copy. So now, thankfully, I get to turn the meeting over to Mrs. Whitman,
Yep.
who can take us for the business.
Thank you.
Mr. Wright, thank you. The first thing on the agenda is the 2022-23 budget calendar. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopt the following calendar, identifying the dates for the notice of the budget hearing and the annual district meeting, including budget vote and election, as scheduled for the dates of Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022, and Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. And I just want to say the calendar is attached, and I'm excited about some of the things that are on there. We have a board workshop on there, and I'm looking forward to kind of talking to everybody about the budget process and the things that go into it, and really making it work for you and making it feel alive for the board. So I'm looking forward to that. I work with Ms. Miano on this to make sure that we had our dates right, and here we go with the budget season.
Thank you very much. I look forward to that as well, the workshop. Anybody have any questions? Could I have a motion, please, to adopt the 2022-23 budget calendar?
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer and a second by Mrs. Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
The next section is the financial reports, and I do want to say that in the next meeting, they are going to be in the consent agenda with the treasurer's report, which is going to consolidate all the reports into one. It just kind of makes sense for us to do that. You'll see the budget status report in here, the revenue status report, the accounts payable check register, and the outstanding check register in this section. So those are the reports that are in the financial report section of this. I don't think we need to adopt those. I think it's just informational.
Yeah, and I'd like to say thank you for that, putting them all together. I think that
Absolutely.
that's a wonderful idea.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. I do have a couple more things I want to talk about real quickly, if that's all right.
Yes.
We just went through a CBiz inventory of the district. They come through in person every couple of years, and they make sure that all of our equipment is properly tagged so that we can properly account for all of our assets. So we're excited to have them on site the last couple of days. We just finalized our internal audit. We had the auditors come in for a couple of days last week and work with our staff, and everybody was great and very accommodating, and we're looking forward to getting their report. They're finalizing that in the next couple of weeks, hopefully after Christmas. The Essa Report, Mr. Zip, Mr. Wright, and I will be talking about that tomorrow in one of our meetings. We're touching base, and that's just about done. It's a very onerous report, but we're just about on the tail end of that one. We were tapped on the shoulder by OCS, and we will have an audit from New York State. That's going to be coming up, and that meeting is, the kickoff meeting is on Thursday this week, so we just gathered all the documentation. I just uploaded it all for the editors, and then we'll hear more on Thursday about what their agenda is and when they're coming in and things like that. And then the last thing is we're working on WinCap to try and make sure it's more fully utilized and that we're automating some things. We had budget transfers automated, and everybody's kind of excited to do that. So we're looking forward to doing all those great things. Very, very busy in the business office.
You are very busy, but we really appreciate it.
Thank
Anybody
you
have any
very much.
questions?
No,
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay.
So if I could, I just
Yes,
want to
you
say I appreciate Mrs. Woodman's fresh view on things, right? It's all to make the district move forward and advance. And, you know, again, we talk about our hiring is to make us better, not for people to become like Cheektowaga Central, but for you to make Cheektowaga Central better. And so we appreciate the efforts that Mrs. Woodman has made, because so far so good.
Thank you.
But she'll get her mid-year evaluation too. The other part that I just want to be able to say is I appreciate, again, the board working with me in trying to create an agenda where we can promote discussion and opportunities for discussion. And I want to just be able to say, while I have the group here, there is nothing wrong with taking something off the consent agenda
Exactly.
and having that discussion.
Yep.
It's just meant to free up your time to be able to talk about what you believe are the most important things. So again, I just want to acknowledge that and thank you again for working with me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wright. I appreciate that. And thank you, Mr. Zip, for being our clerk tonight. You did a wonderful job. Anybody, we have no other questions by anyone? We do not need an executive session tonight, so I would like a motion to adjourn the board meeting, please.
I'll make the motion.
In a
Second.
second? I have a motion by Mrs. DeBartis, second by Mrs. Douglas. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Good night and happy